Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening to you, TDN listeners. Good evening to the audience of this week in interview, and of course, the fans of Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. Welcome, everyone. This is a special edition of This Week in Interview in collaboration with LitVibes, a production of Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. I'm Anthony Drigo, the host of This Week in Interview, and I would like to introduce you to my co-host for this special program, Ms. Nicole Georges-Bennett.
Hello, hello, everybody. And to everyone who's been following the Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival, I do hope you've been enjoying our programming and features for this week and that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel at Write-Tukubuli. And of course, taking in the programming across all of the social media platforms. At this time, I'd like to recognize our partners in this collaboration: Nature Isle Literary Festival, Write-Tukubuli Writers, Piton Noir, and Dominice Poetic Circle. And I'd like to say special thank you to you, Anthony, and This Week in Interview for sharing your space with the Lit Vibes program. I also want to give a quick shout out to Glenora Joseph for my lovely Dominica hat and my shirt. I'm going to stand up. It's going to become
Wonderful.
apparent why I'm wearing that when you are introduced to our guests for this evening. We have a full panel. And if you are wondering what Lit Vibes is all about, we are a space where stories spark conversations and writing meets the real world. This is your front row seat to the trending issues in the writing world. What's our hot topic for tonight, Anthony?
Oh, for tonight, it is Bold Voices. It's about writing in non-specific genre. Bold Voices, Island Inc., non-specific genre writing.
So we're
We're
going to be
going to,
looking at careers and fields of industry where writing is a key component. And yet people don't typically think of people in these fields as writers or authors. However, I have a feeling that by the time we're done with this discussion, if you don't think of writers in these particular fields that are coming up, we're going to change your mind tonight. Tony?
yeah. Thank you and welcome to all of the panelists. As you can see, we have a full house. We have a very, very full house tonight. And we want to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. So we will start by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves so that everybody has a chance to speak. And then we will go back around and open up the conversation and have a really conversational type of discussion tonight. It's not going to be a typical this week in interview where I just ask questions and I get responses. We're going to have a full discussion. So, Nicole, I'm really, really excited about this special this week in interview program. If you allow me, I want to say a very special welcome to the This Week in Interview fans who normally tune in at 8. We're on our early special recognition to the listeners of SBE Online Radio in the Toronto market. They carry This Week in Interview live, as well as in Dominica, RVR Jams on DigiPlay Channel 59 carries This Week in Interview live. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Nicole, would you start us off with the panel?
Okay, so actually, what I'm going to do is turn the mic over to our guests. Let's start with Lorna. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, no problem. Good night, everyone. My name is Laurna Vidal, and I'm a writer. For as long as I can remember, I've been writing since the age of 8, and I have published one poetry book called The Greater You that was published in the year 2015, and that's has inspirational poems in there. In my professional work, I am a marketing officer, and in that field, I am required to write radio ads for to place on the radio and put together infomercials. So that's why I'm part of the discussion tonight. And I also involved in writing sermons, interestingly. So I'm very excited about being a part of tonight's panel discussion.
And we're excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. So let's take in a gentleman at this point. How about you, Cuthbert?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Cuthbert Joseph, and at first I was wondering why would I be invited. I am not necessarily a writer per se, but I am a pastor, and I'm glad that Laurna talked about writing sermons. So I guess that makes me a writer. I do blog on Facebook for the past 10 years. I've been writing inspirational thoughts for the day. I started doing that when I realized a lot of negativity was on Facebook. So, and people thought the internet was just a lot of negative stuff. So I thought maybe I should do something with a positive spin on it. And I thought I would do that for probably a year. And the audience keep asking me to do it. And so it's been way past 10 years, and I'm doing this every day. So I am grateful that you would invite me here tonight, Nicole. And of course, nice to have my uncle Tony being the host. So I feel very much at home. So nice having all of you, and it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the discussions that will proceed. Thank you much.
And thank you. And may I point out that you have excellent taste in hats? I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, I got the memo, although you didn't say it, but vicariously I found out. Yeah.
So Carla, Auntie Carla, why don't we jump to you? Please. I mean, you need no introduction, but go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, guys. I always mute when I'm not talking, But yes, it's such an honor to be included in this panel here this evening. Interesting for the open genre because, as the gentleman just said, that sometimes you don't think that you're a writer because of what you do. But as a poet, and I've done performance poetry as well, and interdisciplinary artist, I use a lot of writing and text in my work. So that's one thing for sure. And then, sorry, I just need to take my phone off. And then also, I've done a lot of writing for travel, for food, for the arts and crafts, press releases, brochures, website copy, brochure copy, promotional tools, and also presentations. So writing for presentations, whether it's for the arts or for the hospitality or tourism. I've done a lot of, delivering different presentations, I guess almost like a pastor, when you have to really sell something for people to believe in something. And also with my coaching, I do quite a bit of writing to reach out to clients. And also even I find a lot of times I'm doing posts for sort of prayer and invocations and motivational stuff. So all of those realms, I would say are writing, because you have to sort of put your creative hat on and really to take it from within, to take out the too much overthinking, let it out, and then come back to fine tune everything with the knowledge that you have from experience and from education and research. So yeah, this about me. I mean, I've been in this for a while. I think like Laurna, probably since I'm a child. It's a little bit embarrassing when you read back things that you wrote when you were 11 or whatever. And but I've always just loved writing and loved to listen to people and to read people's writing. So I'm just really honored to bring the awareness of open genre as what could be also considered writing and honing your craft, which is so important for everyone to recognize that we all have it within us. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm sure we're going to have a very wonderful discussion now that you've actually raised some key points there. So let's go to Gloria. Why don't you introduce yourself there? And everybody, you can unmute yourselves at this point while we're doing the introductions.
All right. My name is Gloria, Septra Augustus, because I write under the name Septra. That's why I have put this there. This is my creative side. That's my middle name, Septra. And I recognized that I had writing abilities from school in the 1970s, just around independence. They asked to write something, and also I guess because there was a prize, I wrote, and I got a prize, and then that told me, okay, you have some skills, and also there was something I was supposed to do at school, and the teacher doubted whether I had written it. So I'm like, from that it sort of showed me that I had skills because the teacher thought I got that from somewhere else, and whereas I had done it. So I continued again in the same line of independence. During the independence celebrations, Dominica normally would have these competitions for story writing. And the first year I took part, I won. And then this became a motivation for me to continue. I did that for several years. So I wrote short stories for independence celebrations. And I continued by writing plays, poems, skits, jingles. I wrote for scripts for movies and also for television, graduation speeches, short stories. And one thing I want to mention also about my stories, most of my stories are related, or those I have written in the early years, relate to childhood trauma. Trauma for pregnancy, domestic violence, child abuse, rejection, poverty. And I remember someone, I was hoping to compile the stories into a book. And when I gave it to someone, and she said, I think you need to be psychoanalyzed because, based on, it's always about something that happened to some child. But this came from having been in groups and having been interacting with young people and being a teacher and so on. You hear all the stories and you want to bring all the messages. So it's almost like a reality series, something that people can say, that's my story. So that's it. I have been writing. Sometimes I do spurts of writing, sometimes I stop. But I think it's a good thing, and I would like to continue. But I consider myself a writer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gloria. So we're going to jump across to Albert. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
So good night. My name is Albert. My introduction to writing comes in the form of being an illustrator. I like to draw and design things. And so ever since I was small, I would draw these characters, and of course these characters in these stories in the universe that they live in. So I would write stories for them. Currently, I am working on a few things. I have a comic book I'm working on, and so one of the characters, as Miss Nicole mentioned at the start, one of my characters is actually on the shirt that she's wearing. So, and that's from a comic series I'm working on. It's taking a while because it's a whole universe that includes superheroes from around the Caribbean. And so I also spent like 12 years in education, teaching computer science. And during that time, I would write a lot of instructional stuff. Where I am in graphic design right now, I work as a graphic designer in a news company. And so there's a lot of making sure the text is correct, making sure the presentation is all right, and it's always visually appealing. So in my whole life, everywhere there is the idea that there is something that it needs to be written properly. Also, I am a programmer. I'm working on a video game right now in my field of programming, and also in there you have to write things correctly and to make sure that they are translated properly to a computer, because computers don't understand English. They have to understand their own language. So for me, that would be the short version of my bio.
Thank you so much. Ameka. Do we have Ameka here? Yep. No, am I wrong?
No, we don't have an Ameka. No.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Jules. Jules
Yes.
Pascal. Yep.
Yes, all right. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this program tonight. I have been engaged primarily as a school teacher. I'm retired now, retired as a professional youth worker, youth development officer, and I'm also a poet. I have been writing poems as far back as I can recall in 1970. I also had an attempt at writing some scripts for one of our local community drama pieces. I've also attempted and been a bit successful in writing songs, Creole patois songs. But most of all, I have been writing poems and have been successful in the National Independence Poetry Competition, especially Creole poems, first, second, third prizes for a number of years now. I've also been engaged in, well, my first publication, well, I co-host, sorry, not co-host, but co-authored a book of an anthology of Creole poems, and a number of writers like Jenny Jacob and Jackson and some others, Gregory Best, and quite a few others. We wrote this first anthology of Creole poems. Presently, I am working on a book, The History of My Community, the History of Grand Fond, and my first edition of my collection of poems. I have also written a book following Hurricane Maria. I wrote this book, The Ravages of a Monster Storm on a Tropical Island. And this has really introduced me to the wide world of writing. So I am now working on another book, which is, as I said, The History of My Community. I have been, like Cuthbert, engaged in ministry. I'm accredited minister of the gospel, and I pastor a church in Grand Fond for over the last 15 or more years. So I have been engaged in writing in different forms, different aspects of my life. So I think that's where I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome. And
Right.
we're going to jump to Makyba next.
Good evening and good night, everyone. Thank you for
Good
having
night.
me. I am Makyba, and I am an educator. So I've been teaching for the past 12 or more years at university level, college, and now secondary level. Communication studies, creative writing, and literature. So taking that into consideration, I guess I could be considered a writer, writing writing course outlines, etc. But beyond that, I've also published a short story in the anthology called Caribbean Musings, Narratives of Identity at with previous colleagues, and also an article, Silent Fortitude, Haitian Women in Agriculture in Dominica, for the Eastern Caribbean Small Grant Program. And my recent work includes a short story on migration, The Shifting Sands of Madness, A Right to Be. I would have presented an excerpt of that earlier in the week. When did my love for writing begin? Pretty much like everyone else as a child, but instead of writing to publish and to share outside, I did a lot more journaling. So in my school books, my textbooks, my mother would always complain about me writing inside there. So that's my experience with writing, and I'm still just exploring other genres as well. And that's me.
Thank you so much and welcome. Who's left? Have I covered everybody yet?
I think we've covered everyone.
Okay, wow. Well, this is a full and juicy panel. Very eclectic. This is going to be a great conversation. And I also want to say hi to everyone who's watching us via our different social media platforms. I see Rosalind Severin has joined us. But Tony, I think I'll turn it over to you before I take over your show.
No, you're very welcome. You're doing a pretty fantastic job. I'm going to suggest first of all that we usually do a commercial break, but this is a 2-hour program, right? Intended to be 2 hours, 7 to 9, right, Nicole?
Yep, that sounds good.
Right. So we will take a commercial break right in the middle, not around 8. Okay. So again, those of you in the audience, please tell us about how you write, whether you've published or not, because tonight is actually about folks who don't necessarily think of themselves as writers, but they find themselves writing, and that might be most of us. But on the panel tonight, we have a few ministers, pastors, we have people in the creative space, we have people in the technology space, we have a teacher, and so we have a really broad mix. And we have folks who actually are writers in the typical traditional way of writing. And so, because that's where I would like to start, I would like to ask a general question, especially for those who have published or they write poems or short stories or typical writing, but you also find yourself working in the non-specific genre as we're describing it. How do you have to put yourself in a different mindscape? So for example, Carla, um, when you find yourself doing your non-genre writing, is that a different type of mindscape and mindset that you have to do, and as opposed to when you sit maybe to write a poem or poetry? And maybe after, I'll start with you, Carla, but everybody else who has that same mix can jump in and give their own experience.
Okay, thanks, Anthony, for that. Yeah, I think it's the same thing for me. If I'm sitting down, I have to sort of get that headspace, be in that zone. I think more of the difference if I'm writing poetry is that it's something more intuitive, almost like a meditation. You know, whether it's like a sunset time, I'm on my own, I have like a drum, I have my, I'm in my Zion or whatever, or I'm on the beach. And it come to you, a lot of it comes to me in the morning when I'm doing first things in the morning. But similarly as well, if I have to do something, maybe a sales tool or a website or a brochure or something like that, I would want to just get the points that I need to work to cover, who is the target audience, and then still with that information, sort of extract myself into a zone where then it starts to flow. And then once it's out there, I can then edit it. Funny enough, I do a lot of writing by hand rather than write it straight into the laptop. And then I can speak it to my laptop and it will change my text to words. So it's quicker because then you have to be typing it, so it slows down the process. And then obviously you can edit it like that. But I do like just to answer quickly, that getting into that zone where it really just flows, because I think then you can get the alliteration, you can get the juiciness in the writing that really keeps people wanting to continue to read, So yeah, definitely it's similar to writing the poetry, just not as targeted.
Right. So if I may, Nicole, indulge me a little bit. I want to go to Makyba because she's a teacher, and she spoke about doing her class prep and so on. To me, that is so different than when you write otherwise, because if you're writing a poem or you're writing fiction, you have liberty as an artist. It's your work, it's what you want to share with your audience. When you're doing it to share with a classroom and it's in a guided curriculum, it's so different. Do you find it a help or a hindrance that you normally would write, where you let your mind roam free, for example, and then you have to try to bring it back and discipline it to follow a particular curriculum? How do those interface?
So indulge me a little bit. So the traditional classroom is a space that I teach in, but I also teach online. And when I teach online, I have to engage my students. I have to introduce my topic, introduce myself, introduce tasks. So whenever I'm doing that and I'm writing out my course outline, course plan, I ensure that my introduction has some literary element, because I think like even narrating instructions to students keep them engaged, especially in an online setting. So for example, this week we did communication studies, and in the prompt for the introduction, I asked the students in a very creative way to introduce the character that they think best represent them in a literary work, and then insert that, pretend like AI is a friend, and you're asking that friend to choose a literary character or a character from a film, and which character would that AI medium use. So I balance, just like I think it's Carla who just spoke.
Carla,
I can't remember. Yes, I balance that as well. I find myself still practicing the creative arts even in my lesson planning and lesson delivery.
Okay, thank you. Two dissimilar answers, but still, both of you guys say that your creative side actually informs your work, writing for your work. Nicole, I'll hand over to you if you want to, or
Yes,
anybody
of
else who
course.
may want to answer to that question.
Would anyone else like to? Yes, Gloria is saying she would. Yes, go ahead, Gloria.
Okay. Like Carla, I write by hand. That's how I think. From the time the hand goes down, I can just, go. So I write by hand first, always. And another thing is that I tend to get a lot of inspiration when I'm doing housework, or if I'm at the sink or so on. Ooh, ideas flow, maybe like the water flowing. I tend to get a lot of ideas there. But one of the things I want to mention in terms of writing, whenever I'm asked to give a speech at a graduation, I love these. There, I bring in my creative skills, and whenever I go to give a speech, it's not because a lot of time when I listen to these things is, to me, talk to the children, talk to the people, bring in reality, something that they can relate to. A song, a this, a that, and I have used different things in that. And whenever I go to give a graduation speech, in fact, I've got an invitation to come to another graduation because of the one that I just gave. Because when I go there, because I deal a lot with children in the court, I deal with them in creative arts and so on, and I was a teacher, so I kind of know certain things that I should tell them or guide them, and also because I keep abreast with the things that they do, the songs that they listen to, I'm able to bring that in, even the way that they speak. So whenever I have a graduation speech, it's about it's not this all these big words and you are the future. I break it down in a way where I relate to certain things that they I expose to and bring out my message. I use certain quotes, use certain songs, even get them to interact. And I kind of, well, I enjoy that. And I speak in a language that they can relate to and they can understand. So I love that type of writing. And whenever I do anything in terms of relating to young people, I like to go down to their level or put things that they can identify with. I think we write for different audiences, and according to who you write for, you have to take a certain a certain strategy in the writing. So I just stop here.
Thank you, Gloria. Yeah, that's very insightful, and thank you for sharing that with us. Is there anyone else who wanted to respond to Anthony's question? Is that Jules? Yes, go ahead, Jules.
Yeah. Like Gloria and Carla, I find myself focusing on whatever it is. If it's a poem or I'm doing a sermon, my key is inspiration and the space in which I am, the place in which I am has a lot to do with it. And also, whether it is a poem or a sermon, there the basics of writing come into play. And you have to bear in mind that you are trying to reach an audience or a congregation, in that case, it's a sermon, and you have a goal in mind. Now, with the poem, you are it may be a descriptive piece, it may be a piece where you are reflecting on something, or but whatever it is, it calls for inspiration, it calls for some inner reflection and motivation to get you to the point where you want to. You'll be satisfied that what you are saying is definitely going to bring across that message, or to influence the change that you would want to bring about. And for me, whether it is a sermon or a poem or any other piece that I'm doing, I really depend quite a lot on the inspiration that I receive from on high. And it calls for meditation, it calls for thought. Now, the other thing about it is the only slight difference in that in a sermon, the centerpiece has to be God, because that is what you want to achieve. You are reflecting God in the sermon. You're reflecting a message based on scripture. And you want to reach an audience, you want to reach a congregation, you want to reach people. Just like a writer, you write a story, you write a book, you want to reach people and you want to influence them in a certain way to get them to reflect on what you are saying or what you are writing. So therefore, I can also think of using different forms in writing a sermon, because I can present a sermon using drama, you can present a sermon using poetry, and you have the different forms in which you can present. So there's not so much of a vast difference in the form that you're writing compared to writing a sermon. It's that you have to use, maybe I would think, everything that is available to bring about that message, to bring about that point that you want to bring about. And so it's a whole question of inspiration, because I can write a poem, and I have written poems just going by the seaside or going in a quiet space in the interior, the forest, and allowing nature to speak to me, and I write, right? I can also sit, and I have done it, going by the seaside, by the riverside, and if a thought comes to me, I bring it across in the form of a sermon. So inspiration for me is the key there. Thank you.
I'd like
Thank
to
you.
thank you. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Brother Pascal. But for me, I do morning walks every morning around 5:30, rain, shine, or snow, and I utilize that opportunity to look at things. A leaf might fall, and that might give me some inspiration. What scripture can I draw from? I was walking the other day, and I saw an ant carrying what looks to be 5 times its weight, probably bigger than that. And I drew from that. I had just seen something on National Geographic where the ants were trying to escape from the flood. And it was amazing how some were willing to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the entire colony. And I got an inspiration from that. I get to the mountain where I normally go and I see the sunrise, and that gives me something. What in scripture um, can I use based on what I've just seen? So that helps me to write my 2 or 3 minute blog that I've been doing, as I said earlier, for the past 15 years. When it comes to a sermon, that's a different story, as the brother says, because you're trying to reach an audience. You have a message that you want to get across, and so yeah, you have to deeply study, get the scripture, make sure it is pertinent to what you're saying. But yeah, it's I never really thought of it as as a writer, but it makes a lot of sense that those are the kinds of things that I would imagine writers get the inspiration from, things like that: the seashore, the sunshine, the snow, right, a snowflake or raindrop, the butterfly, stuff like that. And it's amazing how much you can write from just these natural things.
Thank you very much, Cuthbert. And I love how we're all seeing the commonality coming to the fore here. So what we're going to do, because we're already at 7:38, it looks like, we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to have their voice heard.
Ameka joined. Ameka just joined.
Okay, so we'll welcome her. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask everybody an individual question. And then depending on what sort of time we have left, we can then have sort of like a group discussion or a free-for-all as we go along. Welcome, Ameka. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi everyone. So in Dominica, I'm known as a performance poet. I wear many hats when it comes to the culture of Dominica, but as it comes to this discussion and in terms of the writing, tonight I'm wearing the hat of a chaperone, in terms of a pageant chaperone, and not just a writer as a poet, but a pageant chaperone and writing scripts, etc. when it comes to pageantry, or it comes to putting on short presentations. So that would be the forte of what I would probably be discussing tonight, and also probably being a past pageant personnel, how that can be part of the discussion as creative writing.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome very much. We're very glad to have you. So let's get started. Albert, I want to come to you first. So you're a video game developer, you're a comic artist, and you've been working on a pretty exciting project, at least for me as a comic book nerd and Marvel Universe fan, which is the Caribbean Justice League. Can you sort of quickly describe the project and tell us, how did you go about developing the lore or the storylines behind your characters?
Oh, thank you. Yes, like you said, without the correction of the Caribbean Justice Alliance, I stayed away from using the word league because it would be too similar to. I'm not trying to get sued by DC Comics.
No, you definitely don't.
So my journey in creating the characters started with Dominica. Of course, I was born. I thought, it would be cool if Dominica had a superhero, you know. And I remember I created this girl, similar to, well, she looks similar to what Nicole has in her shirt right now. And then someone told me you should probably try to add some proper background to it by using the Kalinago, because the Kalinago were the first. They were there before the Africans. So the idea was, yes, the characters are fictional, but you can add some history to it to make it a little bit more authentic, that people can relate to it a little bit more. So we have a character that has it's a Kalinago girl who has the ability to transform into a superhero. And from there, that's Dominic. I decided, what if every Caribbean island, every Caribbean territory had some kind of history that could be presented through a superhero? The issue with creating the law is to accurately represent every single superhero in the Caribbean. That's around like 36 of them, male, female, male superhero, female superhero. You have to study each island's history correctly, so you don't offend people and say, well, this is your superhero, we just go and create a drawing and put some flag design on it, and this is that's kind of offensive. You just tell them, and that's their superhero, and then there's no history behind it. So, like, for example, I know Dominican history, I'm a Dominican, I would know it. I'd be able to put this story, attach this story to this character. It makes sense because I'm from here. But then a character from the Bahamas, you didn't spend so much time working on that character, and then you say, well, this is attached to your history, and there is no history in that character's background. The people who know that we cannot identify with this. So it's been a while since I paused it for a while, but I'm getting back to it soon. It's a lot of drawing, it's a lot of illustrating, it's a lot of studying. There are things I could do, like I could draw a lot of the characters easily, but the issue is are you accurately representing what you're drawing? That's what the issue is for me.
Thank you so much. And that's very interesting. Anthony, would you like to continue?
Sure. I'm going to jump back to Carla. Carla, I'm reading here that you write content for websites, you do guidebooks, magazine articles, TV, radio scripts, and so on. So all of those types of writing are definitely intended to go out into the world, maybe to a specific audience or so on. It also says that you're a poet and you also do some other art. Now, when some folks, when they do your poems and so on, they draw from inside and it's personal, right? But so how do you you're very similar to the question like I asked before, but more specific, because in your work, I won't call it your work, you definitely writing to inform. Very nonfiction. Some people might say very starchy because it's it's a guide. It's instructions on a website and so on. Do you find that you have to go back and revise that to probably because maybe it's a little too too flurry, too much fluff in there because it's influenced by your other type of writing, your poems and your short stories and so.
Okay. I don't do a lot of short stories. I haven't done many recently. A lot. I've been around for a while, so I'm talking about maybe about 30-something years of writing many things or more. And so, well, more than that. So basically, I think it's sort of flipping the other way around, trying to get a way to say it that will make sense. So when I write my poetry, I find that I then come back and I strip it right back as much as I can, so that it's more poetic rather than prose or text. So. And then when you're doing something, if you're doing a guidebook or a magazine, usually you have a word count. So then you're forced really to cut back because you have a certain number of words that you have to deliver for this topic. But to answer the other side of the question is that people would ask you to write because of how you write. So if I use the way I write, it makes you taste the food that I'm writing about, or makes you feel the flower brushing your skin when I'm writing something about Dominica, or makes you feel smell the air that you're breathing in. All of that comes through that you would do in a story, in a novel, or in a short story, even more so than you would do in a poem. So in that sense, I think it's very similar. It's just that the editing back would more be for the word count, because obviously you can make a poem a whole book long, but it would still be stripped back. And it's interesting that Ameka spoke about pageant, and then I wanted to answer something you said a while ago about the creative. When we are writing as a poetry and then we do things that are not considered creative, but if we think of ourselves as being creatures that were created by the divine one, right? Then we are creative souls. We are creative. So everything that we are is creative, but we spend most of our life deconstructing that natural, that innate sense to be creative, to be in a box, to be a certain thing, to write a certain way. But it's about getting it out of who you really are. So you have to be individual in your writing. And so I wanted to just address that about being creative. You just have to write. And then coming to the pageant thing that Ameka mentioned, I remember when I was working with, and I've done that with other young ladies, but especially when I was working with Les Lasser, a lot of the times that you have to write about the presentation, write about the dresses, write about the talent, write about things so that you can present it, or they have to do speeches. Yes, I encourage the young ladies to write about what they're going to do. So a lot of that writing, I give them words. I say, okay, what do you feel? How do you feel when you wear that dress? And then they become the creative, so that when they are on stage, they're actually embodying what the description is. You see, so it's the other way around. So that even in itself can see a way to, even with our carnival, writing about the costumes, writing about the building, the construction of the costumes. Even that can include so many things like the smell of the glues, or or the color of the paint when it's sprayed in the sunlight or whatever. All of that can come into creating a text that can then be read out or spoken out for someone on stage. So even in that, you can see the creativity in writing, and people don't think of how creative it has to be to even write a description of capturing what that woman looks like on stage, and you're placing her on a mountaintop or on a beach, or so it's about just being fully creative as a creative being, really, and deconstructing to what the requirement is, what you're being paid to do, if you're being paid to do that kind of writing, so to speak.
Yeah, so you're saying that it's a creation. That's what I'm
Always.
getting from you. It's always a creation. Always a creation.
Always. And that's why when Celia was talking about the panels, and so they asked which, because I'm one of the poets, I think my poems are going on tomorrow night. I said, oh, of course, open genre writing, because like I wrote for photos, when it was in the high scene, when you had big printed guides, which was the golden, most biggest, largest sold guidebook, English guidebook. And I wrote for the Dominica chapter for 5 years for them, But it was, again, you write flowery, but then you have to bring it down to the words in caps. I had to write about every accommodation in Dominica, restaurants in Dominica, and trying to capture this in this amount of writing when I have like a page and a half interviewing the owners, So it was really very interesting. And then now in this day and age, you could use that whole 2 pages of stuff and put it onto social content, media content, So it's even more free now to write, because you can have so much on the page and then still use all of it, even if the position, the post or the reason that you're writing is a certain number of words, you still can use all the creativity. So it's just such a ripe time for us creatives to really encourage everybody to bring that out. I just think that once that regulates your soul, you just feel everybody will be so much happier, and not so fearful. And yeah.
Yeah, Nicole.
So as we're talking about pageant writing, I thought we would jump back to Ameka. Ameka, do you write, first of all, for the hosts of the pageants, or are you writing for the contestants? Who are you writing for?
Well, similar to what Carla stated earlier, you're kind of writing for both, and you're also writing for the audience. So when writing for pageantry, be it a description, be it a talent, be it a speech that the contestant has to perform, you're one writing for the contestant. They will be the performer. They're the presenter of that creative work or that work that you're going to put out there. And then in the way that you write it, the pageant person has to be able, the contestant has to be able to bring it out, or rather the way that you write the words will help them to bring it out to not just the judges, but also to the audience listening, and to put everything together towards the overall piece. So when writing, I think first Carla used one of the examples that, you somewhat ask the contestant how they feel about certain things, especially when everything has been chosen already as to what path you're going to take. It's kind of easier to work sometimes with a theme. It kind of helps everything to slide in that whole creative space and flow. However, when writing, we write for both, because it's not just for the judges to get the points that you are stating, but some part of the points of everything that is judged during a pageant has crowd response. And the judges do judge you based on crowd response. And so when writing, it is also writing to catch the hearts of the public, whoever is viewing, because though most of the time there's pageants, etc., the message is very important. And it's how you bring out the message. Sometimes they say it's not what you say, but how you say it. And pageantry is a perfect example of that, because I could say the sky is blue, normal in a political speech. Whereas if I say the sky is blue, and with all the emotions that come with doing a performance of creative writing, then all that is intertwined into pageantry. And while I'm into the pageantry, I'm also a calypsonian, and I think that falls under the whole pageantry aspect. I have written calypso before. I have been a performer for the past 4 years of the Senior Calypso Monarch. Um, but when writing the calypso, and even how you interpret the calypso and how you interpret your stage props, etc., I believe all of that is a whole creative aspect that we sometimes, I would say, don't think is creative writing. But pageant writing, calypso, all of these, they have puns, they have a lot of literary devices, and sometimes we tend to see it as, okay, it's maybe just songs. But I believe songs actually start off as poetry, and they move with music after, and that also happens with a lot of the pageant talents, etc., whether they are doing drama or they are doing short skits, etc. It all comes back down to that whole creative writing, which is what the actor or the person on stage is trying to express.
Now, when you're writing scripts for other people or you're writing calypso lyrics, do you keep in mind the personality of the pageant contestant that you're going to be writing for, or the calypsonian that you're writing for? Do you write with their voice, their style, their personality in mind?
Sometimes. Sometimes it depends, especially if you have that close knit relationship with whoever you're writing with. So, or sometimes, like in my case, when it comes to calypso, I have a writer currently. However, though my writer may have these original lyrics, or that is how they feel the song should move through, I also have the creative I can express to them that I feel maybe change this word. It might sound more something that I would say that I may feel more comfortable saying. So sometimes there is the opportunity to write like that, where you get the person who you're writing for their personal opinion, and maybe what would sound more natural for them, which kind of makes it easier for you in terms of tweaking the work, or rather crafting it to suit what would flow more naturally and probably give a better presentation of the written work. However, it is not always an option, and so sometimes it is whatever you get, and it's all about how you choose to express it.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's a fascinating look behind the scenes for those of us who love those sort of stage performances. And again, it all goes back to people don't think of writing as a part of the production of these type of shows. So thank you for that little peek behind the scenes there. Cuthbert, I'm going to come over to you. So as your sister in Christ, I know you're probably going to say that writing sermons is more about divine intervention than enterprise. But how much of it do you think is maybe, Holy Spirit inspired, and how much of it is your own research? Do you listen to other pastors' sermons? Do you get inspiration out of that as well?
Absolutely. And I believe personally, you do better by listening to people that are well known, and you copy from them, if you will, but you give them the credit. Um, Let me. I came on board thinking I'm not a writer. These people are so talented, and I'm love listening to them. But I have been doing daily blogs besides my sermons on a regular basis, and also I'm a dental hygienist, and it's amazing when people lay in my chair how they tell me their story, and I think, how am I going to put this in some kind of blog, and it's amazing. And oftentimes, after I've listened to them and I've given them my take, they say, "I think you should be a pastor." but, but,
It's that
but
right,
I
all
am.
right.
Yes, but like listen to people talk about how people they always get the short end of the stick, how they have done for people, and people have not returned the favor. Let me just read a short I do my blog and I give a number to them. So day number 258, I wrote "Wonderfully Made." I say in part, as you go through the hustle and bustle today, keep in mind this thought: there is no one like me. I am unique, and I was created. Talking about creation, I was created for a purpose, and I've entitled this "Wonderfully Made." I am special because I am wonderfully and fearfully made. And as you think about that, look to your right and look to your left. Look in front of you and look behind you. What do you see? A unique individual who was created for a special purpose. They too are wonderfully and fearfully made. So before we trash someone who does not look like us or think like us or act like us, just remember that they too are unique and were created for a purpose. Don't be in such a hurry to condemn a person because he does not do what you do or think as you think. There was a time when you didn't know what you know today, and that was from Malcolm X, and I quoted that. Keep this thought with you always as you continue to move through your day. So those are things like that I get, and that came from somebody that I was talking with who felt they were less than, and I'm trying to explain to them you are unique and you are 100 in something. You might not be able to jump like somebody else, but you can smile like nobody else. And so that is where I come from, inspirational. And I do this on a daily basis for the past how many days. And so when I write, when I do a sermon, I typically get a scripture and I do the research. I go through, and believe me, and Brother Pascal probably can tell you this. To write a half-hour sermon can take you 6 hours. So it's a lot of
Wow.
research because yes, you have to make sure what you're saying is relevant to scripture. You don't just pick it out of there and just say it. It has to make sense. So that's how I know personally that I do my sermon.
But why would you not describe yourself as a writer? Because everything you've just described
Is a
goes into
writing.
writing. So like you're still sort of self-deprecating and you're still saying, yes, I'm not a writer. But maybe I should ask you, what is a writer? What do you
Well,
think is a writer?
I guess in the true sense of writers are people have published many books, and again,
Yes.
maybe you're right. That's probably how I have viewed it all the time. I do have enough material to write a couple books, by the way. Maybe one of you guys will help me on that.
Of course.
But absolutely. I think one of the I don't see her here, but she was talking about when she first began to write because she won an award and she said, "Oh, I can write." I remember at the
Yeah,
St. Mary's
Gloria.
Academy, yes, in third form, Giftus John was my English teacher, and he
Mhm.
asked us to write a love letter, an example of a love letter to some girl, and I wrote a love letter, and everybody wrote a love letter, and he chose mine, and he read it, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, he thinks I can write." Wouldn't you believe it? Quite a few of my classmates asked me to write love letters to their girlfriends. Imagine that. So I
I
guess
hope you
from there,
charge them. I hope you charge them.
I am not going to say who, but and I think I felt from then maybe I can write. Oh, gift us John. He thinks I can write, and that's a good love letter. Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Tony, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yes, Nicole. So the transition is interesting because we had Carla and Ameka that spoke about writing for pageantry, for stage, and presenting writing, and then we switched over to Cuthbert and spoke about his sermons, and in my mind, it made a connection because in both cases you're writing and then you're going to be delivering on a stage, so to speak, because a sermon is delivered on a stage, and so keeping in that theme, I know Laurna also said that she writes sermons. So I got that. Did I catch that right in my notes, Lana? That I see you from a little bit. Lana, unmute your mic. Um, I didn't get that wrong, right? You write sermons, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to come to
Yes,
you
yes, I
next.
do.
Tell us about your sermon writing and your presentations and your thought process in that.
Okay. Well, I first discovered that I could write. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I first discovered that I could write, well, I could actually exhort, is what I would call it, not really a sermon like maybe Pastor Pascal or Cuthbert would do, but it's a shorter version where it's like an encouragement, and you just speak for maybe like 30 minutes where you encourage the congregation. So I was given that opportunity to speak, and then my pastor said, "You're a pastor." And then he told me that I could share. So from then I have been writing short exhortations for the youth mainly, and the thought process is similar. I would think of a topic and then use scripture, and of course be guided by God, the Holy Spirit, to guide that message to bring across encouragement to the youths. So it's similar to the way that I write poetry. I sit down, like Carla was saying. Um, it's more personal, but when you're speaking to an audience, it's different. And I try to get my inspiration as much from the Bible and not just my personal feelings, So that's kind of the difference. But I do have to have some thoughts behind it, the topic and the message that I want to bring across.
So,
Yeah.
so when you're writing that sermon, are you in that time also constructing in your mind how you're going to deliver it? Like, for example, Ameka gave a good example of how delivery, the way you deliver is influenced by, let's just talk about politician as opposed to on stage. While you're writing that sermon, are you trying to construct how you're going to deliver it? This your style of delivery.
Ye- Yes, it is affected by, well, I'm speaking to the youths. So I have to do my research and try to be relevant in using terms and certain phrases that they can identify with, and that are familiar with them and they can be relate to. So how I would speak to, like when I'm doing a radio ad, for example, I also write radio ads, and I do it in a dialogue form, like conversations between two persons. And before I write my radio ads, whoever that is going to do the ad, I think of them. I think of that person, their tone, and I try to make it relatable to tones that I would actually use. So if, for example, I have worked with Wadix, and he has that kind of rough tone that he speaks in. So I would make my radio ad suitable to his personality so that it can be more relatable to whoever's listening to that ad. But for the sermons, it's more, yes, I do look at the youth and I try to make it relatable in the words that I use and try to make it relevant with what's happening and so forth.
All right, thank you. Because I'm going to stay with religion and jump to Jules. Jules, you said that you write speeches, but you also said that you're a pastor. Uh, when you're writing a speech, and when you say you write speeches, I'm assuming is that you write speeches for others.
Yeah.
So similar to what Laurna just spoke about, like when she's writing a radio ad, somebody else is going to voice that. When you write a speech, somebody else is going to voice that. Talk about that in general, but also talk about your when you write in your sermons as well. And when you're going to deliver, do you deliver at different churches, or is it mostly the same congregation? Talk about how all of those factors influence how you write your sermons.
Okay. With regards to the speech, I have to take into account what it is the individual or the person would want me to bring across to the audience. And it has to be based on, it could be an issue, it could be a problem, it could be a motivational speech. And so therefore that has to be taken into account. And definitely some of your own personality, some of your own attributes would come into play there. And so you have to also try to tailor that speech to suit the person who is going to deliver it. I think Ameka made reference to that as well. So therefore, in writing the speech, there is some sort of difference between that and writing the sermon, because though the speech is for the listening audience as well as the sermon, because the sermon is for the end. You deliver the sermon for people to hear. But the speech is, you have to put it in perspective of, and take into perspective the person who is going to deliver it. So in terms of the person's background, in terms of the qualifications of the person, the what they call it, the person's professional background. For example, if I write in a political speech, then you would have to think in terms of wanting to influence the voters. You want to influence the people who you are trying to win, and so it has to take into account quite a number of different factors. The sermon now, on the other hand, while it is also for the listeners, the congregation, you there's so much you would want to say. I mean, as an individual, there's so much. You have a topic or you have a scripture, as my brother mentioned earlier. It has to be based on that, because that is the goal of preaching. The goal of sermons is to bring glory to God. He has to be the central figure, and so therefore the scripture has to be of prominence in that sermon. Now you have to try not to bring up across yourself and your views and your perception, and that's where I think somebody mentioned earlier on, the influence or the inspiration from the Holy Spirit, and then that is the power of your sermon, because otherwise it would be self proclaiming, and so therefore the guidance is the inspiration you receive from the Holy Spirit. And you, as I said, there's so much you would want to say as a writer, as a person, as a pastor, but you have to take into account, I think Carla talked about editing or something like that. So you would have to be prepared to edit. You would have to be prepared to think about the level of the congregation. You have to consider the time, how the duration, and the level of your audience or your congregants, and a whole range of things. And as my brother said, you would have to write maybe a sermon for a half-hour delivery or 1 hour delivery, but you may have to do so much research, and in terms of the preparation, it may take you hours. Sometimes you may do it over a long period of time, and then you come back to it until you are satisfied. Yes, this is what you want to receive. This is what you want to deliver, and this is what you are expecting to get out of it. And you seek more guidance from the Holy Spirit on that. So you can use imagery, you can use analogies, you can. So the sermon can be delivered in various styles to ensure that you can bring the message across. So you have to think of, as Ameka, sorry, you were saying you write for the youth. Is it Ameka or?
Yes, Ameka.
Lana? Okay.
I think Lana.
Lana, yes. You
Oh,
write for the
Lana.
youth, so you have to think about the context in which you're writing, the young people, how they think, and you have to tailor that message to reach them, because you don't want to be above their level of understanding, above their thinking, and so you get lost. They will get lost. So there is quite a lot of thought processes that have to take place in preparing this sermon.
Okay. Nicole, you want to go next?
Actually, I was thinking maybe this would be a good point for us to take a break, and
I just,
then when we come back, we can continue with our group discussion
No,
Uh,
Nicole, without interrupting, I don't think Gloria had a chance to go because she's having internet issues. Did she go?
no, she didn't. But what I'm saying is when we come back, we can
Uh-huh.
tackle the rest of our individual questions and then we can jump into our general discussion.
Okay.
Sounds
Okay.
good?
Great. Yes. For sure.
My internet had dropped
Yeah.
for a while.
That's okay. We forgive you.
Okay. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Presented by
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Hi, literary lovers. My name is Roy Sanford, author and writer, and I have wonderful news for you. I'm here to invite you to get ready to immerse yourself in the wonderful world of word and art at the first ever Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. Engage your favorite authors, participate in workshops, and dive into discussions that will spark your imagination. Join us for inspiring panels, captivating readings, and dynamic workshops, all from the comfort of your home. So don't miss out on this vibrant celebration of culture and creativity. Save the date, September 15th to the 20th, and follow us on social media for further updates at #Write-Tukubuli.
A smart house run by a vengeful AI, a mute witness to an act of unspeakable evil. A breadfruit thief is haunted. A young man unwittingly creates a god. Giant crapos terrorize a community. A witch seeks revenge on her neighbors, and much more. The Piton Noir Writing Collective is thrilled to announce the release of the third book in their acclaimed anthology series, The Flying Crapo. Flying Crapo, Heroes and Monsters. Now available for purchase on Amazon.com. Get your copy today and embark on a journey filled with heroes, monsters, and the magic of the Caribbean.
So, welcome back, folks. And of course, for all the members of This Week in Interview audience who maybe didn't get the memo and you tuned in at 8 o'clock and you're wondering what's going on, This Week in Interview is live at the Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival. We've been on with them since 7 o'clock, and the festival is going on all week. And part of this festival is what is called LitVibes, and it's a live panel discussion on some aspect of writing. And tonight we're discussing writing that is non-genre specific. So another way of putting it, based on how the discussion is coming through, is writing where you probably writing as part of your job, writing as your side hustle, writing as, but not necessarily writing a book or a poem, but you're doing a script and that sort of thing. You're writing for pageantry, you're writing a sermon, you're writing for games, and so on. It's very, very interesting discussion. We're seeing similarities, but we're also seeing great disparity in, or should I say, diversity in the types of writing that we are exploring tonight. It's very, very exciting. So thank you for staying through the break. Let's go back to the panel and to my co-host, Miss Nicole, Georges-Bennett.
Thank you very much, Tony, and welcome back. And if you are just joining us, so that's okay. You're in for the best hour on this program tonight. We have a wonderful and varied, eclectic panel of writers, even though they would not probably describe themselves as such. So we're going to continue on with our individual questions, and then, as I mentioned, we will get into our group discussion. So, Gloria, we're going to come to you now. Now, you are a playwright, you do script writing. Is that a very different form of writing from the other types of writing that you do? What do you find most challenging about being a script writer? Who do you write scripts for, first of all? You're muted there.
There's a difference between writing for stage and for film. And I have done a bit of both, but for the one for film, I did it after I did a film writing course.
So we call that screenwriting, right? As versus
yes. So there's writing for stage and writing for screen. I prefer writing for stage, is kind of easier, and writing for screen is a little more technical. And also, there are also other things that have to go with it in terms of what they call storyboard. You have to prepare certain visuals, and then you have to be a lot more conscious of directions and what you want done. So it's not about words. It's about effect. A lot of times about effect, and therefore it's a different kind of writing.
I see Albert is nodding his head. Albert, do you have to storyboard as well for the comic series that you're working on?
Yes, you have gonna have to do that because you can't fit everything in one panel, just like you can't fit everything in one shot for a movie. So you're gonna have to. This is called pacing. So you have to have a storyboard to pace everything. It's done in animation as well, where you have just a basic drawing of something and what the amount of the words that can fit inside of that one shot before it gets too boring or something like that. So it's a direction that whoever is doing the animation or doing the filming can go on to know which direction to go.
Gloria, do you find that a very challenging thing to do, writing for screen?
Were you speaking to me? Because
Yes, sorry. No, I was asking if you find that more because you mentioned that it's very different. So I'm asking.
It's more challenging than writing for stage. But
I guess because why?
If you do it more often, first of all, when you write for screen, there's a lot more limit in terms of words. And as I said, you have to write for effect. So although in your mind you want to say X, Y, or Z, sometimes you can say it with action rather than words. So so it's something where you have to think much more and certain the guidelines for script writing.
Can you give us sort of an example of what a line would be?
I changed a story to a movie. And let's say the story had probably 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. With the movie, it's completely different. I had to even remove some things, some of the text from the story. Because at that point, whereas you may have to say certain things in a script, for stage, in a movie, it can be done by the actors behavior, and also in terms of the directions or where to start and where to stop, all that's different. Whereas in a stage you have not a stage, on a stage you have the screen, the set, and you'll probably speak about positions on the stage in terms of guiding the actors. You speak about certain things that have to be done when you give directions. The directions are different for screen. I haven't done it for a while, so I'm a little I'm not as sharp now. The last one I did was in just before 2016, 16, 17, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the last one that I did.
What do you remember? Do you remember what was the name of the production?
It's called Pretending Reality.
Did it come to screen? Did it come to fruition?
It was about because some of the things that I write, it was done to evoke discussion on a law in terms of status of children, where parents have sort of like equal obligations, equal rights to the children. And Pretending Reality was based on, does a child have the right to know who their father is?
Wow.
Right. So there was this child who he had his mother's surname, but he kept getting things from other people as to who his father was, and that kind of troubled him. So it kind of showed all what he went through and the extent to which he tried to find out who his father was. And in the end, where he confronted his mother.
Wow.
So it was done so that it would evoke discussion on a child's right to know their parentage.
Wow.
Because as you know, in the Caribbean, we have a lot of, as we say, wrong father, jacket, whatever else they call it in different cultures. And sometimes there are some people who grow up with one surname, and while they're adults, they have another surname, a man surfaces, and so on. So it was ready to bring out that type of message as to, they have a right to know, or to discuss as to whether they have a right to know, no matter how they were conceived, that type of thing. So this was really what it was for.
And this aired?
Yes, it was done in Dominica, and also I did it in St. Lucia. But the reason why it wasn't just put out there is because it was to start off a discussion on this and to bring in aspects of the law.
Okay.
So I did it in St. Lucia, and it aired in Dominica to an audience, and also in St. Lucia.
Thank you. I'm sure it must have been quite the stir when it came out. Makyba, I'm going to jump across to you. So you mentioned, I believe in the little write-up that I have here, that you write diaries. Are you talking about personal journals or creating diaries for other people to express their thoughts in? What are these diaries?
So I'm speaking of diaries that are personal, in one sense, but similar to one of the writers that I look as like my role model, Samuel Johnson, a British writer from very early days in English literature. So I do that a lot. I've not published a journal for other people, but my writing is for myself. So not just journaling or writing about everyday things, and when I say tasks, everyday tasks, but if there is some social issue happening for this week that I, feel I want to share my thoughts on and to find more about myself on the topic, then I do that journal. My intention is to publish at some point. I don't know when.
Okay. So you don't mind publishing your personal thoughts like that? You don't mind people seeing the inner workings of your mind?
I've grown more accustomed to that. I've hidden my writing for a long time. I always thought that my writing is just my personal, whether it's creative writing or nonfiction, fiction or nonfiction, I always kept that to myself. But over the last 10 years, I've become more comfortable because of my education background, sharing my personal thoughts on a topic.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're
So that's
braver than me.
So that's one of the ways I do that besides the journal is also the article I mentioned earlier, Silent Fortitude, Haitian Women in Agriculture in Dominica. When I saw that small grant proposal, I submitted a proposal along with the late Elias Dupuy. In my village, there is this Haitian family, single family. And I figured, it touched me in a way. And I figured this is a story of resilience. It's a story about a minority, not just female minority, but Haitian minority in Dominica, and especially in the context of agriculture. As we know, there are a little nuances where agriculture is concerned in Dominica. And so I chose to submit a proposal to the small grant for that so that I could provide a different perspective on migration and agriculture and an economy in Dominica.
So was this published?
I published on my own page, and they allegedly, I didn't follow up, I'm sorry, published on their page, which they did it in collaboration with the Clara Lionel Foundation. So I never really checked to see. But I also did or published it on my LinkedIn page as well. Yeah.
Doing the research for that means that you're actually interviewing this lady, this female farmer.
Yes.
And it could be quite intrusive, I imagine. You're asking her about her immigration experience and her day-to-day struggles. How did you sort of balance your need for information and research with respecting her privacy, I suppose?
That's a good question. I think one thing that helped me with the interview is familiarity, because she's from the same village as I am, and we're neighbors. So there's that. And the interviews were not recorded; they were one-on-one, and I asked her what information rather would she like published and not published. And I gave her the assurance that, if she's not comfortable with something, I would provide her the article before. And we did it in multimedia. So there was a video as well. If she's not comfortable with something, then, we'd eliminate that. So I think familiarity is what helped me with that particular interview. And I should add, I wasn't interested in every specific detail surrounding her migration. I focused more on agriculture and her access to providing a basic need for Dominicans, which is food during COVID period. So I focused on that time and how she was able to get the necessary supplies, etc. with that. And because she was doing this alongside a Dominican farmer, it didn't feel like I was so intrusive at asking her very personal, private business,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that experience with us. And Tony, I think this is usually around the time where you start saying good evening to all of our viewers and giving them a shout out. And audience, audience, we also want you to join in the discussion and drop your comments in the chat box or the live stream. Do you pursue a career, or are you in a field of industry where you do a lot of writing, but people don't view you as a writer, or maybe they don't realize how much writing you have to do in your job? So, feel free to share that with us. And Tony, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, before I go to the audience, I know that Gloria is also an attorney. And so I wanted to ask her about writing for her presentations before the court, which is another aspect of writing for your work, so to speak. While the audience, as Nicole said, please drop your comments. Let us know what you do for work. Not just what you do for work, but how you use writing in your work. But Gloria, why we do that? Can you give us a quick go over in terms of your writing as a lawyer for presentations in the court?
This one, You can't use fiction, eh? It's very factual.
Well, yeah,
You
that's
don't
why
have
I'm
leeway.
asking.
All right, there's certain guidelines for judgment writing and
Mhm.
certain styles, so that's what you have to follow. And if you use sources, you have to quote your sources and so on. So you don't have in writing where you can just let your mind go. It's about what happened in the case. It's about in terms of what is the case, and what it is that are the issues in the case, and why you would have ruled in a particular way, and you have to support that using the using some of the content of what happened in the case and cases that you have to support you. So it's a completely different type, and you have to keep it in a language also that is professional. You don't have that leeway you have when you're writing fiction or
So
poems.
did you find that switch challenging when you first started writing as a lawyer?
No, well, you know, I mean, it's something that you are trained to do that comes as part of your studies. So therefore, you have to do it. That's what it is.
Okay. All right. I just thought I would ask because sometimes, like, it's dramatized on TV. Maybe it's over
So
dramatized,
if I
but
have to use the drama, I usually use it when I speak to young people in the court. And because sometimes, because there you have leeway, because it's a different court. Like for instance, the court for young people is held on a particular day. That's why I'm dressed in these colors. We don't dress in black and white. We dress in colors, and it's a more, I wouldn't say it's informal, but there you get the chance to speak to the young person and to hear from them and so on. So there I can use some of my creativity in terms of even getting them. Like for instance, a lot of times I ask the young people to spell learn for me. And you're like, what? A big person like me, you ask me to spell learn? Yeah, because what I want to get in sometimes is that when I ask you to remove the L, what does it say? Earn. And then I give the story, So I have certain words that I ask them to spell and I ask them to remove this, and what word do you get? Just to bring out the message in terms of what the crime was, or what so that I can speak to them and to show them, so that they can think. And also there is an area where we have questions that we ask in something called restorative justice, where you ask them the question so that they think, who would you have affected by doing this? Who did you think is affected most? How do you feel? And that kind of thing. So there you get them to internalize and to really think of what they did. So in these situations, I have a chance to sort of use my other skills, writing and drama and other things I know, to sort of get them to understand and also to get them to participate in that discussion. So I get to use it, but in terms of giving judgments, you have to have it in a certain way.
fascinating. Thank you for sharing that so much. Nicole, in the audience, I see we have a few writers. We have Catherine Helena Dorset. We have Rosalind
Hello.
Savra McLean. Who else do we have in your folks? If I can only see those who have made comments, and other regulars on this weekend interview, Phil Senior, Ozone Media 767. I'm not sure who that person is. That might be a media.
You're
But
welcome.
in terms of the comments, Rosalind says, "Thanks for acknowledging me." She's the author of Oceans of Thought. This proves to be an interesting program. Um, who else? Catherine says, "Very interesting show." And when Cuthbert was talking about writing, no, she says, of course, everyone everyone is a writer, but when you publish, you become a published writer. And then when I think it was Ameka that was talking about a song is a poem, starts off as a poem. She said, Rosalind is also expressing that poetry is actually songs without music. Um, uh, and and you hear with the physical air, but songs that is aligned with the frequencies of inspirational air. And a big part of our program tonight, Nicole, was the fact that we have a lot of folks who write for sermons. And so that comment from Rosalind brings us almost to the Psalms, right? The Psalms in the Bible. That type of writing is poetic, it's song, it's inspirational, and it uses imagination. We don't have much more comments from the audience in that sense. So, and we're also 22 minutes away from the scheduled end. Nicole, I don't know if you have any other general questions that we want to ask.
Yes. Well, I want to ask everybody. We've gathered you here because you write in your fields, in your, careers. Does it bother you that people don't know that you're a writer, or does it bother you that people don't consider you to be a writer? I'm just throwing that out there. Anybody can feel free to jump in.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't feel that
Well,
way
we
at
know,
all.
yeah, we know you don't think so.
But what is interesting though is as a pastor, and Nicole, you know that I have this program on New England Christian Television Network, which you are a part of at some point. And of course, your art is wonderful as you speak and you paint. One of the things that gives me great joy and satisfaction is the fact that my program called From the Heart, which typically I just speak from the heart. If something touches me, I just speak about it. And then I get calls or people text me from Africa, from England, from Canada. And I'm like, wow. And there I was thinking, I'm speaking in my congregation, I'm reaching people. That's nothing. And what we speak and write, it's in cyberspace and it's around the world for a lot of people to see. So, Brother Pascal, I know he's probably happy about that because from a biblical spiritual point of view, we are asked to go into the world in our Jerusalem, in our Judea, in our Samaria, and to preach the gospel. And some of us probably will never get out of certain areas. We might go to North America, we might go to England, and that's it. But imagine the books you write and you get all over the world, but you're speaking, and people are hearing you all over the world, and you are actually fulfilling what God asked you to do as a pastor. That makes me feel good. So, so just to come back to your question, whether or not people think I'm a writer or not, it doesn't matter. But are they hearing what I'm saying, and what do I say? Does it change anybody's life? And that is the key for me.
Amen.
Anybody else?
Amen.
Thank you, Cuthbert.
But because I've won competitions for writing, I mean, people think, well, but people see me as a writer, so I don't have that problem. Because once you wrote this story, that story, and then you win and your name is there, then people just call you writer. So I don't think anybody considers me not a writer. So I don't have that problem.
But
just to add to what Ms. Petra is saying, just to add to that, I'm sorry. Just to add to that, if you don't consider yourself a writer and you don't put your work out there, because writing and narration is about selling your own experience, right? So if someone has never read what you've written or seen it, then why would you anticipate they would call you a writer? For me, it doesn't matter.
For me here, I share the same sentiment that because a lot of people do not see these genres of writing as creative writing or generally considering themselves a writer, most persons may not approach you on that regard. For me, it is somewhat the opposite because I'm a performance poet and I am a writer. And I think maybe on the panel right now, for the few panels I've spoken to for the week, I've been the youngest on the panel. So I may actually be the youngest on this panel. Also, again, you know how they say the future is in the youth. And so based on the different clubs and groups that I am involved in, which was probably also one of the reasons why I was late today, I am actually a lion. And we had a meeting, so I was kind of trying to boggle both. Sometimes because they know you're a writer, it can be bothersome sometimes because they just assume that you can pen something quickly and they know it will sound good. In my way, I am a performance poet. So a lot of people know that even if I do write, I tend to have that drama and charisma with the way that I put out words or the way that I emote or say the words. So I tend to be called upon sometimes when it may not be the best. I wouldn't really say the best opportunity because every opportunity is an opportunity to sell yourself and sell your work. But sometimes, you know, you may want to take a seat back and because of the quality of the work that you put forward and because persons quote unquote know you as a writer or know you as a performance poet or know you as a reader, you know, etc., they may feel confident in pushing you forward in that department, and sometimes you want to take the seat back. So for me, it is sometimes okay when they don't know that I am a writer.
All right.
That's Albert. I want to ask Albert because I think he probably feels the least as a writer. Is that fair to say, Albert?
I guess you could say that because I am more of a visual person in
Mhm.
doing things, most likely converting written stuff into something that's visual. Even in my day job as a graphic designer, people will send things to me in a description form, in a written form, and I have to turn that into some graphic to put in a documentary or news or something like that. So even when a lot of my years I've been spent in the news as a graphic designer, and sometimes it would be sent to me and someone has to describe something and I have to try to figure out a way of taking whatever they wrote down and bringing it into reality. In my field as a video game designer, um, have to take something that's written, and if you don't want to board the play, you have to turn what is written into some kind of interactive form. Because if you don't have in an interactive way, you're gonna have to do what exposition and explain it in a long form writing or big walls of text, which probably people wouldn't sit down there and read if they're playing a game. So it's a balance, and usually, especially in the credits of the news, whenever the credits are going up, I am never presented as a writer. I'm always presented as a graphic artist, graphic designer. No one really would know that. So in the whole field, I have always been more likely visual person first and then writer second.
Does that bother you though that people don't know how much writing is involved?
In general, I think there are some places where writing is underappreciated and people don't think of what goes into it. I think of small things like, for example, the options on your phone, home, back. Someone had to write that, and when you designing software and stuff like that, the writing goes into that stuff too. A lot of things that people think might, well, a big mind had to write that. There are certain things on your computer and screens, signs everywhere. Somebody had to sit down and make sure it was written properly so that the general person, when they see it, they could understand it. Again,
Very good point. Yeah.
for small things like that, especially, I think it's unappreciated sometimes.
Interesting. Tony?
Yeah, I think it was covered a little bit. The question that you asked about, does it bother them if somebody doesn't consider them to be a writer? I was thinking about it in the sense, as I listened to the panel, that although almost all of them consider themselves writers in certain aspects of their lives, but in the aspects in which that brought them to this panel tonight, um, so they may not have considered themselves a writer per se. So, for example, when Albert says he writes instruction manuals, or when Makyba says that she writes a lesson plan, or those kind of things, even the person themselves probably doesn't think of themselves as a writer in the sense of a writer in that mode. But I think we handled that. Nicole, we have a question from the audience, and I'm putting it up on the screen. I don't know who wants to take a stab at it. Shane is saying, a very diverse panel. Why do you think so few writers tackle the political situation in Dominica and the Caribbean presently? I don't know if anybody has any particular thoughts about that.
I'm gonna give a little thing.
So
To Shane online, who's probably watching us live right now. Um, cannot say that it's not being tackled. It's maybe not being tackled in the way that maybe you have access to, or rather that you are interested to. So it's maybe not being tackled in the type of writing that you are interested in, but anything generally in that regard becomes social commentary. And so there have been articles about it in the newspaper. I've seen the funny editorials in the different newspapers tackling such issues. I think right here in Dominica, some people know of My Boy's Kitchen. That is some form of creative writing. It does tackle some of the political issues, or rather discusses some of the political issues. Calypso is social
Calypso.
commentary at its large. And as much as persons, as I stated before, Calypso is basically poetry put to words and rhythm and sound. And so it is, I think some of these issues are maybe put out there and discussed, but maybe not in the way that you would like to see it. A lot of poets I know discuss poetry within politics, etc., and stuff that are going on in the country in their different types of writing. So maybe if you're not part of a poetry forum or somewhere where they're performing, you may not hear that type of discussion. And also for persons who write plays, I know a lot of political issues and what is going on in society at the time tends to come up, because most of the time people write plays, and Miss Augustus will probably talk to that. They write where it is relatable to the current populace or whoever the audience is at the time. Most of the time they bring in aspects that they can relate to on a day-to-day basis. So maybe there should be more of that. Maybe there should be more of that, but you have to also realize that as writers, we write based on what drives us. And so maybe a lot of people are not driven by the political talks or the political topic. Um, for me, generally as a writer, I try to stay away from it simply because it can be a little depressing. And most of my poetry or my writing tends to be uplifting, and maybe I write also a lot of romance. So it's in a different genre of writing compared to persons who actually do political writing. So we maybe have less people doing political writing per se in Dominica, but when it comes to creative writing or generally writing, I cannot say that it is not existent in our Dominican populace.
Right. But
After all Facebook posts have something political every day, or WhatsApp, etc. So yeah.
So to a quick add on to that, I think this is a perfect example of what our panel discussion is about tonight. That when we think about writing, there are certain, as we say, non-genre specific areas that we don't think of writing. Because the opposite, if you put calypso writing as writing, which it is, there's actually the complaint that too many of Dominican calypsos are political. And so perfect. That this is what Ameka is pointing us to. But Gloria, you had your hand up.
I would just like to say that if we go back to Alwyn Bully, please. In fact, now we are rehearsing for Streak, and about 2 years ago we did Nightbox. These two plays had social commentary in it. A lot of things, like for instance, with Nightbox, it dealt with what happened in Dominica at the time of the nurses' strike and so on. In Streak, it dealt with it dealt with what happened during the time when we had this whole issue of dreads coming in and the Dread Act. And what I find is that people, to me now, are afraid to speak. Period. Even when we have the play, and sometimes like when we're rehearsing, somebody will say, remember it's 1970 something, eh? It's almost like or we would make we would give that caveat, because there are a lot of things, they say more things change, more they remain the same. There are a lot of things and that comes out in the script that makes you think, oh, this is happening now. And then I guess some people, even the actors, sometimes the way they say it, it's almost like they don't want to be associated with that. It seems like they're saying that against this party and so on. So I think people are more afraid now to speak for whatever reason. We are aware of a lot of reasons why they're afraid to speak, and therefore we do not have these full-length plays where we look into what is happening at this time, as used to happen in the 70s. Or I guess in the 70s, because the play was the main thing, a lot came out there. Right now we have other means, so I guess something snippets are coming out in other forms. But in terms of full-length plays where these things are addressed, you'll find very little of that now, because a lot of people are guarding, I don't know what.
Can I jump in very quickly?
Sure, Carla.
Okay. I think that it's important to also recognize that social commentary can be considered as political writing. And I think it's also important for writers to write in a way that is so layered and textured that people can sit with a piece and unravel what the meanings are. So it doesn't have to be something so obvious. And I think that is what we are challenged with as writers, to make something have so many wrappings on it that it's so delicious to read it and unwrap and see all the different meanings. And I think that's where powerful writing comes in. So I don't think that to answer the guy's question, I think definitely people are doing a lot of social commentary, which a lot of it is not political, because people think of politics as one party against the other. No, it's just bringing an issue to the fore that a political person in power or the government needs to address, or the system needs to address, or the community needs to address, because you can have politics in a community, in a society. It doesn't have to be a government thing. So I think it's important for us as writers to really understand how our work can be really layered and textured, to have more engagement. Okay. I just wanted to also say something for a while now, because we're talking about the economies of writing. And I noticed we don't have, apart from you two, we don't have people from the radio and people from television on here. And I just was remembering throughout this conversation, some of the most important writing and difficult writing that I have done is actually preparing, because I used to host with Talking Tourism. I used to host also Good Morning Dominica. So that was television, that was radio. And having to sit down there and bring down all these thoughts that you want to express down to literally a 30-second or 20-second bite, and then remembering that things are taken as a sound bite. How can I say something that in one sentence is cannot be taken out of context? Because here comes the politics. You say something and it can be misconstrued, So, but it's so important, because that is such critical writing. When you open a radio show, you have like 30 seconds or a minute to just give a bang, 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 to build the trust, to influence people, to be persuasive, and to engage them. And it's just so exciting to do that kind of writing as well. So I just wanted to bring that in, especially for the radio personalities and then the television personalities there, because I did find that really interesting writing to do.
That's a whole other show. That's another show.
But that is writing.
It is.
Another genre. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Tony, I noticed that we are very quickly coming up on the end of the show. I don't know where the time went, but you know what? I am just so grateful to all of you for taking the time out. I mean, we're all in different time zones. So first of all, thank you for making the time and for joining us. We want to give everybody a chance to perhaps promote any books that you've got out, or any upcoming projects that you'd like to let everybody know is coming out for your fan base. And also, where can we find your books, or where can we find your work? So let's start, Jules. I know you're probably coming to a church near you on Sunday, but about your book, the Ravages of the Monster Storm. Could you perhaps tell us where can we find it?
Unfortunately, I spoke to some in the week, and I am now looking at reprinting. I have run out of copies, and as I said to him earlier, it was not put through Amazon. I did my personal sales and so on. So now I'm reprinting it. We do not have any more copies at Jay's. That's where it was found. So I can say pretty soon I'll be having more copies printed, and I'm hoping to get it done through Amazon this time. So unfortunately, at the moment, we it's not accessible right now. Also, I want to say that I've also been involved in a book that has been produced by the Write-Tukubuli writers. It's called Montage Dominic. It's a book of short stories and poems by Dominican authors, and that is also available at the from members of the Write-Tukubuli writers, as well as I'm not sure if it's available at Jay's. They still have copies at Jay's. We are presently working on another edition, second edition. So pretty soon we may have that out, if not very early in the next year. As I said, for me, I'm working on a book of poems, which I hope by the end of the year I'll get it out. As well as I'm doing research and writing a history of Grand Fond. So that's my piece. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Many wonderful projects on the burners there, and running out of books is a good problem to have. I'm sure all of our writers wish we had that. Lorna, is Lorna with us still? I think she might have dropped off a bit.
I think she dropped off.
Makyba, how about you? What do you have coming up?
Well, two things. I am writing a short story for submission in the Commonwealth Writers. That's on migration as well. For some reason, I'm fascinated with migration at this period and phase in my life. And I am relaunching something that I started 2 years ago. It's Read Dominican Challenge, where on social media, I try to promote literary works that have been written, whether it's a poem, so different categories and themes. So if you can find a poem from a Dominican writer, you post that hashtag. So I'm relaunching that so we can have more visibility out there, because in my studies, Dominican writing is not something that comes up very often. And so I want to promote that. And as well, Caribbean musings, narratives in identity, my film on Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is Ameka back with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. So we just wanted to give you an opportunity to let everybody know, what are you working on? What can we look forward to from you in the future?
Like Makyba, I am trying to attempt the Caribbean writing short story competition. Most persons know me for poetry, and I haven't really given prose too much push. And so a few friends of mine have read some of my prose that I do for fun, and not for really for, I would say, for being a big writer on, and they've pushed me. So I'm hoping that I can maybe have some works there and give it a try through this medium. I also would like to promote a small show called Expression. It is being held here in Dominica on the 27th of this month. It is a show that is showcasing younger artists and many writers and some persons who are just now entering the field of music, so they have no big artist status. And I've had the opportunity to kind of mentor a few of them, and so we're bringing it to the Space Vineyard on the 26th of this month. And so I'll be there doing some poetry and guiding along some other new artists who may either be singers, writers, and maybe even short storytellers. And so we're hoping that we can have a successful show. There's no entrance fee, so we're just asking mainly for the support, and that there may be an opportunity for a small donation, etc., to help us keep motivating the artists to be a part of it and keep at the task, because most persons, you have to start somewhere, and we're trying to offer them the opportunity to start. Republishing, I'm not yet published. I have been thinking about it recently, and so hopefully soon persons can probably have my my poetry or have snippets of my poetry. I have one poem which is published in a book that was written a long time ago, I guess maybe close to 15 years ago. Though I'm the youngest panelist, I have a lot under my belt when it comes to writing. So the youth division actually had they celebrated the Year of the Youth, and I think that was somewhere in about like 2011 or somewhere in that area region. And I got the honor to perform a poem for their activity that they were having, and that specific poem was published in their magazine. So maybe if anybody might have had a copy of that or still have the opportunity to get a copy of it, then they might probably see that poem of mine. But if not, they just have to attend the poetry slams and listen to it, or maybe you might just hear my work in a pageant.
Do you have a blog or a Facebook page? No?
Yes, I have an Instagram page, but it's my personal Instagram, and only recently, my recent performances that I have been doing as a poet recently. So I got the opportunity to perform at Orion's graduation, and I also get the opportunity to perform at like weddings and like for instance Queen Show, Jazz and Creole, some of those activities. So in recent, with the uprising of AI and more social media, I have been trying to collect content that I can post, even if I'm unable to post the full like the full poem, etc., that I will get the opportunity to perform. And right here with Write-Tukubuli, I think this Saturday they're going to be posting some of the writers and their works, and I actually have 2 poems that will be featured on this throughout this festival.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much. And let's jump to Carla. What do you have any shows coming up? Anything you'd like to let us know about?
You're muted, Carla.
I always turn it off. Sorry. Well, anybody can find me, Carla Armour. I have Instagram, Carla Armour Art. If you look me up, you'll find me online. My poems, I have 3 dropping tomorrow on the Write-Tukubuli. I actually have a painting in an exhibition opening next week in London. We have exhibitions going on in Dominica, so I'm a visual artist as well. And I have some programs, a program coming up, but I don't want to say anything yet. I'm launching in about 8-9 days time, so I will open it then. But if you just follow me, Carla Armour, Instagram, I think is a good place. Facebook, you can find out what I'm doing. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Exciting. And Tony, did you want to invite someone else to promote their work?
Who we haven't gone to Cuthbert.
Okay, you haven't done me.
Well, hello.
Yes.
I can go ahead.
Yes. So obviously I don't have any publications, but you can follow me on Facebook, Cuthbert Joseph, and my daily postings on the CB's Corner, just to inspire. And of course, you can also follow me on New England Christian Television Network, NECTN. On Sundays at 2:00, I have a program called From the Heart, where I speak from the heart. So you can find me there, and hopefully you'll be inspired. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Nicole. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you for letting us know that. Laurna? Is Laurna still here?
Laurna, you're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I was just saying I wanted to announce that I was working on a children's storybook, short storybook, hopefully to be published next year. So that's what I'm currently working on. And persons can follow me on my blog, which is Laurna Guiste, Publicist, where I post short stories and poems. So, and thank you guys for having me. Great discussion.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And Albert, what do you have coming up?
Well, I'm still working on like I said, I'm working on a comic series, still trying to get a story out together for the different islands and stuff. You can follow at Super on Facebook. Just look for the page Super Dominica. And on Instagram, it's Caribbean Justice. It's Caribbean_Justice. Or if you could just search my name, Albert, Pierre, and Super Dominica, I think something will come up. But these are the two pages. And then I do some art. Every now and then I post some art on there. So
All right, awesome. And thank you for being with us tonight.
It was great. It was
all right. And Gloria?
Okay, I want to give my time to help to promote the legacy of Dr. Alwyn Bully. I am the production manager for Streak, and we're hoping to put on the premiere of Streak November 1st and 2nd. And I am encouraging those in Dominica to please attend. And we also will be doing pay-per-view. So those in the diaspora, I'm encouraging them to, when we put this out, that they would participate by buying their tickets to see the show online. So there you will see the genius of the pen of Dr. Alwyn Bully. And also you will get the political content as to what was happening in the 1970s. Because Streak is described as a slice of Dominican life in the 1970s. And it was, and it's really about that time in our history when there's this whole Dread era and the Dread Act. And also it shows how people, and at that time we didn't have social media, so it was more about the radio serials and reading these books and so on that dominated how people socialize, and also how they even thought or what inspired them. So Streak will be put on in Dominica 1st and 2nd of November, written by Alwyn Bully, and in fact it's the 50th anniversary. So 50 years ago, Alwyn wrote that. And if you listen to some of the things, you will wonder if Alwyn had something looking into what's happening now, or if more things change, more they remain the same. But there are lots of lines that, some people would think that you're talking about them at that point in time. So, out for Streak.
Thank you. And I guess that's what good writing is all about, being timely. So everybody, just on my behalf, on the behalf of the Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival team, we want to thank you all for taking the time to be here, for sharing your insights. And in case nobody says it to you, I'm going to say you are all writers. You are a writer. So thank you again for joining us. And Anthony, thank you very much for sharing your stage and your space with us. And we just want to encourage everybody to keep on looking up the YouTube channel. We are rebroadcasting a lot of these shows. So that's at Write-Tukubuli on YouTube, and you can find all of our programming, the features, the writing workshops, the author showcases, and we've got the live stream coming up on Saturday, September 20th. So look out for that as well. Tony?
All right, thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. It was such an honor and a pleasure to co-host this program with you, and I want to say thank you to all the guests and the audience. Thank you. I hope you guys had as much fun as I had. I want to encourage you to continue to tune in every day to the Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival. Remember, when you go on YouTube, to put the @ sign. So if you go on YouTube, you put the @ sign in front of Write-Tukubuli. If you don't put the @ sign, it doesn't really take you there. But you put the @ sign in front of Write-Tukubuli, and you will find the channel. It's also carried live on TDN radio, Facebook page is also live there. I think we had a wonderful discussion this evening, where we took it almost like off Broadway. So the main writers and everybody is on Broadway. We went off Broadway and we looked at sermons and screenwriting and in the courtroom, in the classroom, and all of those things. And it was very personal to me because I taught technical report writing at the college, at Clifton Dupini Community College, because my daytime job is as an engineer, and so I taught the students that were doing the engineering program at the technical college about writing, and I always used to say to them that if you're a carpenter at the end of your work, you have something that you've produced. If you are a nurse, you have a healed patient. If you're a farmer, you have produce. But most of the time, if you're an engineer, if you most of the professions, what you have to show for your effort is something you've written. It's a written report. It's a file of some kind. So you need to really develop the quality of your writing. And I think that is what tonight's show was about. It's about how we use writing in our everyday life, even if we don't think of ourselves as writers in that moment, or others not consider us as writers in that role. So I hope that sparked your imagination, and it helps you in all aspects of your work, whether you're writing a love letter, whether you're writing a letter to your child, whether you're writing a letter to somebody to give them a piece of your mind. It's all writing, and you have to do it. And the better we are at it, is the better we do it. So, folks, thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. Nicole, you need to come on this weekend interview and co-host with me a couple more times. I had so much fun.
Oh, wonderful. And also, and thank you, Sam, our producer, our excellent producer.
Yes, Sam is always in the background, keeping the mics live, right? And the cameras going. So thank you so much, everybody. And tomorrow night we have LitVibe again at 7 p.m. But join us at 10 a.m. And if you missed any of the days, you can catch the replay on the YouTube channel. So good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.